Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen are the pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video as I do have a bonus pair in store. We'll quickly go through my trade for the week first and then progress into the analysis shortly after. If there is a particular pair you do want to see my analysis to, feel free to skip ahead using the timestamps below. But I had one position this week in Euro USD. I'm looking to anticipate a bit of a bounce for Euro since the market's been very stretched. You can see this the daily time frame for Euro, really big move to the downside. Market's quite overextended. I'm looking for a bit of retracement, and especially coming into a strong area of confluence. We've got these higher lows here, 1, 2, 3. I'm looking for a fourth, not necessarily a higher low for price to continue higher, but at least a bounce and we come back into a nice area of support, which again, we did see a lot of momentum kick in when we were last over in that area. So I do anticipate a bit of a bounce. We did see a nice reaction there on the daily as well. I entered on the 4-hour chart on this candle on Thursday. Did see some nice momentum, however, momentum has shifted back bearish, and I may be looking to close the trade a little bit early if momentum doesn't kick in, if the bullish momentum doesn't kick back in, because the trend is still very much bearish and we're still seeing a lot of momentum to the downside, and that very much could easily just continue and price could break through this area of confluence. So I'll be looking early on Monday to see how we react and if we can see some strong bullish candles close back to the upside again. If not, and we see that continuation, I may just close the trade early, because this is definitely a bit more an aggressive trade, kind of going against the momentum of the market. So if momentum doesn't shift back bullish, it's a sign that the bears are still here to stay and possibly could see the continuation. So I may close the trade early, but what would be a key factor is what we do on the next retest, because we've just come back into that same level now. So this could be a great place for some re-entries, and we'll get into that when we do take a look at Euro USD. Actually, Euro USD is the first market, so we'll just get straight into it. So for Euro USD this week, I'm looking for a bounce, and that's kind of what I'll be looking at for the past couple of weeks. Looking for price to hit some key levels of support, which is this level here, and of course we have the nice trendline confluence as well. If I do expand to the weekly chart, you can see overall the market has been slowly pushing up with these higher lows. So we'll come back into another area where we could see another higher low form and a push to the upside. I'm not looking for anything crazy with Euro because of how bearish it's been. I've drawn a Fibonacci from the high to the low, and I think there's a reasonable guess that we could come back into this area here close to the 50. I think this is pretty reasonable as well. Major high there on the left could act as resistance again, and that's more so what I'm looking to take the trade into. And if we can get there, I'll be more aggressive with my trading stops. I may close the trade completely over there as well, depends how things are looking. But the idea with Euro is that we had a big stretch to the downside, markets coming back into major levels of support, higher time frames of support as well. So I'm anticipating a bit of a bounce here. Did see a nice bullish engulfing candle on the daily, so it's a nice reaction. However, momentum hasn't really kicked in yet, and as you can see on the 4-hour, we're looking bearish again as we come into the low. Now price could well form support here, create a higher low and continue higher. That's kind of what I'm looking for. We've had this pretty long-term bearish descending channel for a while. Let me get rid of those lines there from the fib. We've had this bearish descending channel for a while, so I've been looking for price to break out of that, and we did get the breakout this week, but I just didn't keep going, and that's the key thing here, because we've had such a big drop for Euro. For us to really reverse that, bullish momentum needs to sustain and keep going. If it does hit some tops and see some resistance and bearish momentum kicks back in, the trend could easily continue lower. So it's very important that now we're coming back to retest this area of confluence as well as the channel, that we kick back in and see that bullish momentum on the 4-hour. If not, it might be a sign that price wants to break through. But if you're looking for entries in Euro, longs do look good. Market's very overstretched, so we're likely to see some upside. The dollar's hit some levels as well where we could see some retracement. So early next week, looking for some rejection here. If we can get some wicks, that'd be great. Bullish engulfings, and then look to take that higher. And then in terms of where we possibly could head to, again, depends how aggressive you want to be. As I said, with the targets for my trade, I'm looking for us to push back into 1.09385, which is the high over there. But I would suggest looking at some of these highs to book some profits. If we can get a push back into this high here, I'll go to break even and remove my risk, because again, I'm going counter trend, a bit more of an aggressive trade. I definitely want to be a bit more conservative with my trade management. So if we can get back into 1.086, that's when I'll start to manage the trade. Again, if you look to enter here, I think that's a reasonable target, first target. And then if you want to leave some positions to run, you could well do that. But coming back into some highs, especially because the market has been so bearish, it's definitely wise to look to book some profits or remove some risk, trail stop loss to break even. So overall, 1.07855 is a crucial level for me, because if you can hold this, I do think the buys will look really good and we see some upside. If we go and break through that, that might be a bigger statement for Euro that we could probably see a lot more downside in the near future. So we're in a very, very pivotal area of confluence. Let's see if we can hold. Looking for some signs on Monday if we can continue that rejection. If not, it could mean a lot more downside for Euro. So keep an eye on 1.07936 going to next week for Euro USD. Okay, so now over to USD JPY. So USD JPY is trading at a really big level on the weekly chart. So in terms of my swing bias, I'm kind of leaving it probably for another few days to really cement whether I'm going to be bullish or bearish on dollar yen, because you can see in the weekly chart where we're trading really, really big level here at 152, big rejection over there, again over there, and now we're trading at that area. We're slightly closing above it, but again, it's nothing confident, it's nothing very assertive in terms of it's a solid candle closure and prices breaking through, or prices rejecting heavily as well. So it's kind of the best of both worlds sort of things. It's in between. So I need price to really show me if it's going to break out or reject that area before I come up with a swing bias. But what I can say in the low time frames is that there's still a lot of momentum. You can see the past few weeks, a lot of momentum, big candlesticks to the upside. So the market has been flying pretty well on the 4 hour and intraday time frame. So I do like the short-term buy opportunities, but I just wouldn't hold on to it because of where we're trading. If you can get some pullbacks back into this area, 151, 150.250, I think those look like nice areas for some longs. But as I said, I wouldn't look to hold into that trade for too long. If you can get it back into the prior high, I think that is a great place to call it a day, because at any point we could see that selling pressure kick in, since we're at some big weekly levels, and see price completely turn around. So if you're on an intraday time frame, 4 hour and below, I think the buys do look good, because we're still seeing a lot of momentum here. The market's really continuing, consistent higher highs and higher lows. We were pretty corrective, but the market's kind of broken out that corrective behavior, and now we're seeing confident swings. So the buys look good on some pullbacks, and this looks like a corrective move as well. So it looks like we're likely to push higher at some point for dollar yen as well. So the buys do look good. It's just because of where we're trading, I wouldn't be looking to hold swings too long, because it's undecided really if we're going to reject this level or completely break through. And when we get that confirmation, then I'll be a lot more confident with the buys and start mapping out some targets where we can look to take trades. And keep an eye on some of these areas on the left there, around 154. That looks like a nice target if we are going to break through that level, but we'll speak upon that probably next week. But for now, the buys do look good. Just keep it short term. Wouldn't look to hold the trade for too long, and be careful at these prices as well. But if you're looking for some entries, again, what is this? 151, pretty much on the dot. 151.1 looks like a nice level for a long. And if price was to have a slightly deeper pullback than expected, there's also this area just below around 150.320. So liking the longs there intraday, but keep an eye on that big level, because we could look to turn around. But 151.1 and 150.320 look like some good areas for some longs next week. Okay, so next up we've got dollar CAD. Dollar CAD's trading at a really big level on the weekly chart. And this is a significant price where we could be looking at dollar CAD turning around. It's been bullish over the past few weeks, but now we're hitting into a really solid level here, just below 1.39. You can see massive resistance there as well, and now we're coming back into that same area. Now we could potentially break out, but I would wait for price to give me that breakout first, and then I'll talk about buys, once we've got the retest or a pullback. I'm not going to be talking about buys whilst we're coming into a big level. Even with all that momentum we've seen over the past few weeks, this is a really, really big level, and I would expect at least a reaction from dollar CAD at these prices. So I will be looking at reversals for dollar CAD, which at the moment we don't really have yet. The market's still giving us higher highs and higher lows, as we can see there. So it's difficult to take any shorts just yet, but it is getting ready. And you can see we are still kind of correctly moving up. So as we push back into 1.39, I'm expecting reactions here. You can look for some aggressive trades, maybe wait for a double top, wait for price to respect that area a couple times, then look for some entries there. Why I say it's aggressive is because you're going against all this momentum, so you're trying to catch a falling knife. You're doing the opposite of that in terms of looking for sells because of all of that momentum. So it is a bit more of an aggressive trade, but you're trading at a really sensible area where it does make sense. But you would want to wait for at least some confirmations there, double top, break of structure even, before looking to short. But this is a great area where we've seen a lot of rejection in the past. And again, I wouldn't look for anything crazy. I think a move back down to that level there, the origin of that ascending channel makes sense, back into, what is that, 1.3784. I think that looks good. There are some areas here we could push into, but I would be too optimistic. You can always leave some small positions to run if you are looking for those extended targets. But I think a push back into that level there looks pretty reasonable, especially because the market has been so bullish. So dollar CAD looking at some downside, coming to a big level at 1.39. I'd wait for some confirmations, at least the double top before shorting. And yeah, looking for a push back into 1.37495 for next week. Okay, so moving on to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound is trading at a big level, just like dollar CAD, which we just had a look at. Again, if actually you go to the monthly chart, see it a little bit better on the monthly chart, you can see where we're trading. So really big level in this area. You can see a collection of wicks at this 0.83835 area. Big rejection there, big rejection there, big rejection there. And again, we're trading at that same area there. Again, now, potentially we could be breaking out. Of course, support and resistance doesn't hold all the time. Breaks do happen, and maybe this time is the break, but I would wait for price to give me the breakout before I look for shorts. I'm not going to short directly into major support, especially as a swing trader when I'm looking to hold my trades a little bit longer. It doesn't make any sense. I'll wait for price to break through, and then we can discuss some opportunities below that area and a lot of downside. Because if we are going to break this level, I'm expecting a really big move down, because we've been consolidating for about 8 years really. So it's been a long consolidation, and the breakout will happen at some point. But until we get that breakout, I'm anticipating a reaction to the upside. And for now, I think the buys do look good because of where we're trading at. Now it's just about waiting for the right time to strike and taking those trades at the right time. So if I just clean the chart quickly, if I do drop back to the 4-hour time frame, we can start to map out some structure and start to see what price is doing. So far we are still pretty consistent with all the lower highs, but you can see we are slowing down with this low here. This could be a really big double bottom. Test it once, we're back there again, having a tough time trying to break through. So really what I want to see is price starting to break structure to the upside and give me some higher lows there, and something like that could look good for some longs. Of course, it's theoretical, depends how price looks next week, but something like that is what I'm looking for. Break and retest, break of structure, and then looking to find a higher low somewhere. You can look to get involved in this double bottom here, first test, second test, and anticipate the reversal like so. Just like dollar CAD, it's an aggressive trade because you're trying to catch that turning point there of such a big drop we've had over the past few months. So it's definitely an aggressive trade, but it does make sense because of where we're trading. And if it does play out, you're probably looking at a really big risk to reward. I would say a push into there looks really good, but you can probably expect price to go a lot further than that if we are going to hold into this monthly level. So the risk to reward probably will pay off if it does play out, but it is typically a bit more of an aggressive trade. So waiting for something like this is much safer. Of course, you don't always get the retest, so you might miss out on the pullbacks. But with Euro Pounds, quite a corrected pair, so I do think retests are pretty frequent with this pair anyway. So something like that is what I'm looking for. The bias is definitely bullish anyway from this level. Looking for buying opportunities. Aggressive trades around 0.831 look good, but waiting for something conservative, maybe a break retest to the high here at 0.835 is something I'll be looking out for. But yeah, definitely looking at upside next week for Euro Pound. Okay, so moving on to Aussie dollar. So it looks like Aussie dollar is breaking out this low. This is the area where I did say buys look good this week, but we never really broke out that channel. Price still stayed descending in that channel, similar to pound USD, which we'll get into in a moment. But this was the support level which I was looking for price to hold, because this is the low which gave us the high. So I want price to stay above that. If it does break through, then we could probably see a lot more downside for Aussie dollar. The next big level I've got in the market is all the way down here at 0.64. There's no other kind of significant area that jumps out at me apart from this low. And because price has been very, very sideways over the past kind of year, I'm kind of treating that as a range there. So if we do break through that, the next big level would be nearer to the low of the range, which would be this 0.64 area. So unless we do see a lot of upside early on next week with Aussie dollar and we get a strong break to the upside like so, then yeah, the buying opportunities look good. And that's pretty much what I was talking about this week on streams. If we can get a nice breakout like that, the buys look good. I would be looking at pushing to 0.68, so roughly back into the high here. Maybe we can take it back into the high there as well, but something like that is what I'm waiting for. Big sign that momentum's back in the market, and we'll likely see some upside. If not, again, we could be breaking out and we could be heading all the way back down to 0.64. In that case, I'd wait for a bit more downside and maybe some pullbacks and a retest of that area for some shorts. Could look good. Maybe later stages of next week, or maybe early the week after. But there are some downside opportunities here for Aussie dollar, because if we are going to break through 0.664 and push down to 0.64, there is a lot of room for us to trade into there. So that range looks pretty healthy. That's what I would expect price to end up at if we don't do anything like this. So keep an eye on kind of both sides, but this level will be very pivotal in terms of calculating my bias and what I'm expecting next. But still looking for something like this for Aussie dollar, so keep an eye on the break and retest of that. If we don't get that and the market just keeps falling, then we're looking at retest and big push all the way back down to 0.64. So that's the plan I have next week for Aussie dollar. Okay, so next up we got NZD CAD. So NZD CAD, I've been anticipating upside, but it looks like price is not able to break back above resistance here. I've been looking for us to form another high low and continue back into the high. Been pretty consistent with the high lows as of late. One over there, second over there, third, looking for a fourth and a push up. But this level here has acted as resistance really well, and the market's failed to break back above it. So in my book, it looks like we're likely to get another push back into the lower end of the channel. If I zoom out, in fact, if I go to the weekly chart, probably see it better. We do have this nice ascending channel, so it looks like price is coming back to the lower end of that channel. Whether we get a break or a bounce, we'll look at that when we get there and study price. But in terms of the rejection we're seeing here, it's quite impressive, and the market has tried a few times to break above, but it just left wicks behind. So it tells me that most likely NZD CAD is going to keep rolling over to the downside and probably get to this 0.822 area. So if you're looking to trade NZD CAD next week, I'll be looking at shorts. Probably not right now because we're trading into some support there, so not the best time. Ideally, something like this would be nice if we can get another pullback, another lower high, and kind of continue with this sequence here. So lower high there, another lower high as we come back into structure. And if I draw a Fibonacci, you can get back into the 50, 0.618. That would be a nice place for a short. Or you can be looking at the break and retest of the low here, and again looking for a retest there for a short. Something like that could look good. Again, it depends on the retest and the pullback and whether the risk reward looks good. But in terms of the bias, I'm expecting more downside for NZD CAD back into this 0.822 area, as long as we keep up with those lower highs. So yeah, pretty bearish on NZD CAD back into that level. We may see some nice bias from there. So I'm not going to say long-term bearish bias, because we could actually turn around and see that next high low at that area. But for now, that's likely where the market's going to push next. And then we can study price when we're there, whether we're going to get the break or a nice healthy bounce there. But still looking at more downside back into 0.822 for next week for NZD CAD. Okay, so next up we got Pound NZD. So Pound NZD looking very bullish this week. Well, at least from Friday anyway. Big push to the upside, which made the weekly candle look strong as well. And most importantly, breaking above this 2.156 area, which, as I said last week, if we do manage to break through this, the next area we're expecting price to move into is that next swing high at 2.19. So that is exactly where I'm looking for price to head towards, as long as we stay above this area, as long as this is not a big fake out and we see Monday's candle come straight back below. If we can hold above this price point, we're likely to continue higher. Overall, if I do zoom out, look at the overall trend, the market's still been pretty consistent with these higher lows here, and it looks like it's just printed another higher low for it to continue. So if that is a higher low, you expect us to get back to the high and potentially beyond that as well. So with the break of this resistance here, definitely very bullish now on Pound NZD. And now that we've got that to our backs, we can use that to our advantage, because that now will be turned into support. And if you can get a nice retest of that area, find the next high or low, that to me looks like a really nice place for a trade. Look for some entries, stop loss below, and again, looking to take that back into the high at 2.19 or wherever we pull back from. Let's say we push up, we pull back from this area, that could be a nice target. You don't necessarily need to target all the way up there, but again, that's where the swing potential is. So if you want to leave some positions to run, it makes sense to do so, because the trend is up, the swing high is there, we've broken through major resistance. That's the next kind of only level of significance which the market would probably run towards. So there's a good chance we do end up back at that 2.19 area. So very bullish on pound NZD. I'm liking it. I probably would add it to my watch list next week. So if I can get a pullback back into 2.157 area, look for some entries for some longs, and then targets back at 2.19 for next week for pound NZD. Okay, so next up we got CAD Yen. So CAD Yen still trading at major resistance. So in terms of my overall bias for CAD Yen, I'm still waiting for a bit more. Similar to CAD Yen, we're trading back at major resistance. Similar to dollar yen, I meant. We're trading at major resistance. Is price going to break through this or hold? As you can see with CAD Yen, this is the weekly time frame, big rejection, and now we're there again. And if price is going to see a continuation of that drop in July, this pullback and price pushing into this area, that's a reasonable place where you can look to expect continuation for CAD Yen. So it's an area where we could sell off, or an area if we do break through and we see confident price action above, there could be the start of a really nice uptrend and the continuation back to those highs there at 118. So either which way, there's a big move to be had, whether we're going to break and continue or reject and pull back down. There's a big move to be had here with CAD Yen. What I can say though with some confidence is that there is that momentum on the lower time frames, on the 4-hour hourly, which does look good for short-term buys, similar to what we had to look at with dollar yen. The market is still pretty consistent with these higher lows, the low back down there, the higher low here, the higher lows there, and we're still seeing pretty impressive bullish legs to the upside, particularly the last one there as well. So in my book, it's a good sign that momentum's still there and the buys do look good. It's just that I wouldn't expect this to go too far. I think if you can get pushed back into the high there, you're looking at a really nice move, and you probably want to call it a day, because that is the bigger level on the weekly chart where we could potentially sell off, or maybe we do break through, but I'll wait for price to give us that information and then we can plan some trades around that. In terms of the kind of the short immediate setup there for CAD Yen, my bias is still up in the air, but at the moment I do like the bias here kind of intraday. If you can find some entries on the hourly or the 4-hour or the 30, that will look good. Breaking me tested this level here was really sturdy resistance. Price finally got the breakout of that. Now looking at the retest and a continuation back to the high, and I think that's a good move just to call it weak, and then we wait to see how price continues to progress, whether we get the breakout or we see a big rejection. But that's the plan next week for CAD Yen, looking at some longs from 109.065 back into the high for next week. Okay, so now moving on to pound USD. So pound USD, I'm looking for a bit of a pullback, similar to euro, similar to Aussie, and some of the other dollar pairs, dollar CAD as well. Looking for a push to the upside. However, we are pretty bearish and we have broken through structure. So I do think the bigger move for pound USD is the downside. If we do see some upside, it's probably just going to be a lower high if the markets continue falling, as we have broken that structure now. So I do think there is more room to the downside for pound USD, but because we're so corrective in this descending channel, we've had a really big drop as of late as well. I'm looking at some upside, but in terms of the buys, what I would be looking for is price breaking back above this area, very similar setup to Aussie dollar, which we just went through, and then look for some continuations off the back of that level, because at that point we're back above structure. We've seen the breakout of that ascending channel, hopefully with a lot of momentum as well. Then the buys make a lot of sense there. If not, we can definitely hold this area as resistance, and potentially use that as another lower high to sell off. The market's been pretty consistent with all these lower highs here, and who's to say we can't put another one for another drop to the downside. So I can see price going both ways. If we don't have quite enough momentum to get that big breakout next week and price just kind of tops out, then we're likely just to react and fall. If price is going to have that momentum and breakout, cool, we'll look for the retest higher low, and the upside looks good. It possibly back to this area here around 1.325, solid resistance. would expect it to act as a resistance there again as well. So there's definitely room to the upside, and there's definitely room to the downside as well if this wants to fall straight away. It's up to price to make that decision. But if you're looking at shorts, that's kind of the area I would be looking for. Retest of that level as support and resistance and that descending channel. If it doesn't hold during breakthrough, then we can discuss the longs at a later date, and probably some nice buys back into 1.325, which is back into that daily level there on the left as well. So either way, there's room to the upside and to the downside. It's about price giving us those confirmations and then us reacting as traders and taking those positions. But that is the plan going to next week for pound USD. Okay, so now on to pound CAD. So pound CAD is still steadily moving in this uptrend on the daily chart, as we can still see with these higher lows. Very consistent and still slowly pushing up. Haven't really seen a big break of structure or a big sign that the market is about to reverse. We are starting to lose some momentum, as you can see. We're becoming a bit more corrective, and kind of as expected, because we are trading or we're about to trade into a really big level of resistance on the monthly chart. This is the monthly time frame for pound CAD. We've been really bullish for a while, and now we're coming back into a big level. I do think we'll probably see a bit of a move to the downside. So pound CAD, I am anticipating a big sell-off at some point, but the trend is still very strong. So until that kind of shows some signs of turning around, I think taking some shorts are always going to be a little bit aggressive. Unless you're just going to be taking smaller trades, then you can probably get away with that. But if you're looking for bigger swings and bigger shorts, you want price to kind of make that move for us, and then we can discuss some shorts at a later date. But as of right now, price is still respecting structure, still giving us higher lows there, and still bouncing from support pretty well. So in terms of entries for the buys, you really want price to be trading at this low here for a long. We was talking about this long here last week. We came back for a retest. Nice little buy there, but again, if you're not in the trade now, you don't want to be entering buys now anyway, so you want price to be back there again, and then look for the same trade, possibly back to the high there around 1.808. And if you do get the break, fantastic. Hopefully it's a big one for a lot of momentum. Then we can discuss some shorts and hopefully some big sells, back down to some lows down here. The lows there's some lows here we can contend with as well. So there's a lot of downside. If we are going to respect that monthly level and reverse, I'm expecting a pretty big trend to form. So there's a lot of room for us to fall into. But as of right now, market's still relatively bullish, and we're still holding on to support. So push back to 1.808 looks the most likely. But in terms of entries, if you're not already in the trade, the ship may have already sailed unless we come back to retest. So that is the analysis going to next week for pound CAD. Okay, so next up we've got pound yen. So pound yen is trading at another area of resistance supply where we could see some sellers step into the market. We've had a really big push to the upside, and we're likely to have a retrace from there. So even though we have seen a lot of momentum and the market has been bullish, similar to the other yen pairs as well, the market has seen a lot of upside. I wouldn't be looking to hold positions too long or take trades for extended targets, because these are areas where I do think we're likely to have a retracement from, similar with CAD yen and dollar yen. Buys do look good, but I wouldn't hold on them for too long, because I do think the yen pairs will go through a bigger retracement at some point. But there's definitely a massive level of resistance here, which the market has broken through this week. And if you could see a retracement back into that area, I do think there could be a nice little buy there. But again, if you can get a trade back into the high, I would definitely be looking to take profits there and call it a day, because we're at that kind of area where the market could see that bigger retracement. If I drop to the daily chart, you can see you had one big push, a pullback of that, another big push as well. So I do think the market is likely going to have another pullback of that if it does want to continue higher. I think that's a bit of a realistic move. The market's been very corrective as of late, so it's not like we've been steaming to the upside and we've seen a lot of momentum. The market is still pretty corrective, so a pullback at some point is pretty likely, especially coming into this 197, 198 area. Buys do look good in the low time frames. Yes, the momentum's there, but I wouldn't look to try and take it too far, knowing where we are trading. So something like this looks pretty good, and if we can get a push back into that high there at 198, I think it's pretty reasonable to call it a day and take the profit. But something like that is what looks good to me there for pound yen on the lower time frames. Retest the 195.7, longs back into the high, and then we can see whether price wants to break through or hold into that level next week. But that is definitely the analysis going into next week for pound yen. Okay, so over to gold. So gold I've been very bullish on. Still looking for the retest of the high here, but unfortunately it looks like gold is just being too bullish, which I don't know, kind of expected. After this big move, I was kind of expecting price just to keep flying, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if price was to get the retest, but Silver's pretty close to level as well, but it looks like that one's pushing off anyway. But yeah, in terms of gold, if you really want to find an opportunity with gold, you may have to just look for those shorter term pullbacks, because realistically, that's kind of what gold is giving us right now. Even this bigger pullback there didn't really amount to much. So yeah, the conditions are just very, very bullish. But now it looks like we're seeing another leg to the upside. We do have the high over there, so I'd watch out for that. But we could be looking at some breaking retests off this area. If we used to drop to the hourly chart, for example, if price was to continue to break through that area, see a nice little pullback, that could end up being a nice place for a higher low and to see the next move to the upside, and a realistic move as well. If the market is going to continue to flow like this, a retest of that high is pretty realistic of happening. Of course, there is that chance we might have a bigger pullback, so I will stay vigilant with this level. I'm not going to completely ignore gold, just in case we do see a big move to the downside for some reason. I'll be there waiting for the buys around 2680. But in terms of a reasonable trade, and again, not looking for anything crazy, nice breaking test of the high there, take it back to the high, looks good, and you can take your profit there. But something like that looks pretty reasonable and more likely of happening given the conditions of gold. So yeah, I still stay patient and wait for that opportunity, because that really is what fits my plan. But if you are working on the lower time frames and looking for your opportunities to buy gold, that to me looks like the next best opportunity on the lower time frames for sure. So that's kind of what I'll be looking at for gold. Looking at more upside, the sky's the limit. Again, in terms of targets, I'm looking at 2800 as the next big one. We've just gone and hit 2750, which we did with that move there. So now it's 2800, the next big area. I wouldn't suggest maybe targeting 2800, but that could be where you're working towards. You can leave some small positions to run or trail. That's up to you. But yeah, definitely still looking at buys, still looking at more upside for gold into next week. Okay, so next up we've got Bitcoin. So Bitcoin looks like we are trying to break out of this channel. We've had this channel in play for a while now. And as you can see, we did get a break last week. I said I wasn't quite convinced because, again, not a lot of momentum. We still haven't broke through 70 or 69k, this level here as well, which is the level I want to break for the breaking retest to come into place. So that's still the main level which I want to see broken. I want to see it broken with momentum as well. And then yeah, pullbacks after that will look good, and we could be onto a really big move back to the all-time high, which is at this price here, 73,700 roughly. And yeah, a lot further, we got 80k not far away, 90, 100k potentially as well. So there's definitely a lot of room to the upside for Bitcoin to move into, and it does look like we are breaking and retesting the low end of the channel. But just because it's a bit corrective and momentum has died down, I want to see price break that high, and that's when I'll start being convinced and looking for those pullbacks and really looking for those buy setups. If anything, we can close right back below in that range, and then it just becomes a big fake out. And at that point, I'm very much bearish again, looking for a swing to the downside. So things can tip one way or the other very, very quickly with Bitcoin. We're just in that indecisive area where price is making its mind up, whether it still wants to be bearish and continue lower, or it is time to get the breakout and really let price fly. So I'll wait for price to make its mind up. And like I said, a break of 69, 70k would be the catalyst for the buys for me. And if we close back inside the range, then yeah, I would be bearish. So waiting for a bit more development before I really put my buys forward with Bitcoin. But that's literally what I'm looking for going into next week for Bitcoin. Okay, so moving on to our bonus pair, which for this week is CHF JPY. So we're looking very bullish here. I think with Swiss Yen, it's definitely the most confident breakout out of the yen pairs, and this one does look very bullish to me because it's broken through some major resistance there on the daily. We've seen some nice closures on the weekly chart as well. If I can switch to the weekly, no, that's the 11 week. Just the 1 weekly chart, there we go. So really nice closure to the upside, breaking through this area here too. So in my book, I'm looking for pullbacks and looking for upside back to the high there at 179, 180. So looking at some pullbacks on the 4 hour, we've seen some really healthy trends as well, just like with the other yen pairs too, some nice higher highs and higher lows. And as of late, really nice push to the upside there too. So what I'm looking next week for CHF JPY is a pullback now from that high. We've got the 0.618 lining up really, really well with that swing high there as well. It looks like we're moving pretty correctively too. So if we can see price make its way there I think that looks like a nice place for a buy. Look for some entries in that area and stops below, and looking to target the high and possibly the 180 area as well. But again, a reasonable target back into the high, and then we see what happens next week with the yen pairs. But if you want to leave a positions to run, I would be the most confident with CHF JPY because we've already broken major resistance. So this one's kind of already got the green light for price to continue pushing further. And it looks like CHF is gaining strength as well. It looks like CHF currency pairs are falling at the moment. So I think that can continue. CHF will stay strong. And if yen stays weak, we should see CHF JPY really push higher. So nice area of confluence there, looking for entries there, push back into the high looks good, but possibly 180 soon as well. And that's the plan going to next week for CHF JPY. And guys, that does bring us to the end of the analysis. If you have found it useful, please be sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. It does really help out. Comment down below any pairs you're looking at. I'm interested to find out. If you're not in the Elevating Traders Discord already, guys, make sure you go check it out. Link to that in the description below. You get discount opportunities there on the Elevating Traders challenges. And of course, you do get the opportunity to discuss with other traders, opportunities, including myself. So make sure you go and check it out. But guys, really appreciate you tuning into the video today. Have a great weekend, and I'll catch you all in the next week.